Here at WUSA 9, you know we are committed to covering stories about the environment and its impact on our lives. And this evening, the impact couldn't be more serious. We're talking about the respiratory health of our entire region and how climate change and events like this week's heat wave are making harmful air pollution worse.
NASA is conducting flights over the area right now to document it as it's happening. Environment Matters reporter Scott Broom met with them as their mission launched.
It's possible this week you might see this slate gray government-looking airplane flying over and over and over again at very low altitude over your neighborhood. Well, I'm here to assure you today it is not the government spying on you. It's scientists from NASA and local universities sampling the air to figure out how climate change and this week's coming heat wave is affecting air pollution.
This is a wind probe. We use this to measure winds in all three dimensions.
NASA Goddard atmospheric chemist Glenn Wolf talks about the mission over Maryland in this week's heat wave.
So you're going to see us flying at about 1,000 feet. Pretty low. It's much lower than most commercial aircraft fly. We're doing that because we want to be down close to the surface where people are breathing the air.
Wolf, a team of scientists and students, are documenting how a pollutant called ground-level ozone develops as the temperature rises on this hot, stagnant summer day.
The hotter it gets, the more likely you are to have an ozone event.
Atmospheric scientist Russ Dickerson of the University of Maryland heads the Regional Atmospheric Measurement Modeling and Prediction Program and is a member of the Maryland Climate Change Commission.
Climate change is making heat waves more frequent. It's making the hot season start earlier and end later. So that means it's made it harder for the states to attain these air quality standards.
Ground-level ozone is linked to all kinds of respiratory impacts, including a rising rate of asthma. It's a lung irritant linked to cars, power plants, and other emissions. Pollutants from those sources are like ingredients in a recipe. Heat and sunshine accelerate a chemical reaction in the atmosphere that creates ozone. That explains the relationship of unhealthy air pollution to climate and hot spells.
I'm the guy that pushes the button for the air quality alerts.
Meteorologist Joel Driesen of Maryland's Department of Environment uses the data from the planes, 20 ground stations, and weather forecasts to warn the public about air quality threats.
When we forecast, we're really looking at where the winds are going to be blowing, and that's going to tell us where the urban plume, is what we call it, is going to be blowing. On a typical summer day, the surface winds are from the southwest, so you're tending to blow the urban emissions from D.C. towards Beltsville up the I-95 corridor.
On Driesen's computer, watch the plume of pollutants from Northern Virginia and D.C. transform into ozone on a hot summer day. That's right, frequently the suburbs get the worst of it, as emissions from the urban core drift in the wind and cook into ozone in the heat and sun. The data is now showing climate change and heat is pushing back on decades of progress cleaning the air.
We've made a lot of progress reducing emissions, but if we have more heat waves, it's going to be harder to keep the ozone levels down.
In Maryland, I'm Environment Matters reporter Scott Broom, WUSA 9.
According to the U.S. EPA and Centers for Disease Control, the most effective way to limit your risk to that lung-irritating ozone is to pay attention to the air quality alerts. Also, you should limit exposure outside when the conditions aren't so good.
Yeah, so we know those indoor air filters and masks, they do very little to limit ozone exposure, but they do help with particle pollution, which is also being made worse, by the way, as climate change increases wildfires as far away as Canada that blow some of that smoke over our region.